Let's talk about meth, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
What's up, Lite Nation?
What is going on, Lite Nation?
All right, so at this point, you should all be fully aware that Kevin and I are trying to build a brand new Toyota Supra to be a 9-second car on the quarter mile.
Not only there, but we want it on the street too. We want something that we can drive every single day to the track, home from the track, and just be an all-around daily driver. But 9 seconds, that's tricky.
It's tricky. And we also want it to be not only affordable, but we want it to be really, really reliable.
Yeah, so the Supra right now is proving to be extremely responsive to all the mods that we're doing.
Everything.
And it's not all the mods. We have like four mods, like literally nothing.
That's it. Like, we've spent less than $4,000 at this point on our Toyota Supra, and we're making almost 640 wheel horsepower, 650 wheel torque.
Yeah.
But we're not done yet. We have one more trick up our sleeve, and that is why we are at LG Motorsports in North Texas today, because we have something we want to show you.
All right, before we head inside and get started, this is LG's Silver Supra with their Heritage carbon fiber front splitter. But the big thing is LG Motorsports is their wing. This is the Heritage wing that was on the Toyota Supra at SEMA at the LA Auto Show that had the whole Heritage body kit. And they actually have more pieces to this, but this wing is brand new, it's carbon fiber, and it fits and looks absolutely amazing.
It's basically something that Kevin's begging me to put on ours. I'm personally not, in general, a fan of like the duckbill with the wing, but out of all the wings that I've seen so far, this one is probably my favorite.
Let's talk about meth, baby. Let's talk about you and me.
Talk about your teeth? All right, no, so different type of meth, but seriously, let's talk about methanol, which is obviously a kit that we are running on our Toyota Supra. Now, we've already gone over the benefits in a previous video when we installed the meth kit onto the Supra about how the meth can actually help to keep not only everything cool, but it can actually help to clean the back of your valves as well.
Right.
So there's a lot of benefits, but...
Well, direct injection is, as you know, goes directly into the cylinders. It doesn't clean the back of the valves. You get carbon buildup. Well, meth keeps that clean, which is great. But in our situation here, the way we're getting up to about 650 horsepower is using methanol as additional fuel, because the fueling system in the Supra runs out and you can't use fully 85 for that.
It becomes one of your limiting factors.
Right.
So to help with this,
Yeah.
today we are actually installing LG Motorsports auxiliary fuel system, which will allow us to no longer have to use meth as extra fueling.
Right, so we're hoping that with this auxiliary fuel system, we'll be able to run fully 85 instead of E40, and we're limited at E40 because of the fuel system. This will allow us to run that.
And it'll allow us to do so reliably.
Yes, and hopefully we'll be about the same horsepower that we are right now on E40 plus meth without the meth. And then on top of that, we can spray meth for cooling, for cleaning, but not have to worry about using it for fuel, which could be a bad thing if something ever happened while you're at full boost, full power, spraying meth. If the pump fails, a line gets clogged, something happens, the line ruptures, you might have a bad time. Yeah. All right, so on a direct injection vehicle, you have a low pressure pump, you have a high pressure pump, and then you have your direct injection system. On the Supra here, it's putting out 5,000 PSI on the high pressure pump side. Now what we're doing here with this auxiliary fuel system is going to be a completely standalone fuel system that's going to supplement into the high pressure side. So this is where we're going to start. Eventually we may need more on the high pressure side, we may need more injector. We don't know yet on this vehicle because it's too new, but this is what we're going to try for now.
Which means, let's get to the install. So first up, you get to install the adapter here, which is going to allow us to connect this line up into that line up there so that we can incorporate the entire auxiliary fuel system into the factory fuel system. And also, I kind of want to point out what's really cool is it's awesome that a lot of companies now are doing stuff like this. So basically, it's just a better quality part, but it's also including this quick disconnect here to make going back in, not just installing it, but if you ever have to take anything out or anything, a lot easier, which is pretty dope. Okay, so this is the pump that we're going to be using. It's a Bosch pump that you can find in Porsches, and it's been tested on the A80 or the Mark IV platform for a long time. We also know that it's reliable enough that cars that are making upwards of 1,500 horsepower are using these bad boys as an auxiliary fuel system, and they're completely reliable. So we know that this is more than capable.
We're not going to be making 1,500
horsepower. We know it's more than capable for our Supra, which is only going to be making about 700 or so. We're hoping.
Only, we're hoping.
But it's, I mean, as you can see, it's actually tucked really far up out of the way. It's not touching any of your lines, and it's tucked up far enough that we'll actually still be able to use all of our factory belly pans. It's almost as if Toyota expected you to add an auxiliary fuel system, because those are there from factory and they're not in use. So it just gives you this like perfect place to run the line. Realistically, they're probably from BMW and they're probably for like a vent tube or something like that, but I'm just gonna stick with the thought that Toyota intended us to install this and it's just fate. Okay, so we've got all the fuel lines hooked up at this point, from the tank to the pump, and then from the pump to the factory fuel rail, which means at this point, all we have left to do is wire it all up.
And so far, this is really freaking simple. Like, they did a great job. This is really simple. Like, this is really easy.
So that's where this comes into play. Now this is a Honeywell Hobbs switch, and this one in particular is a 4 PSI Hobbs switch. Now what that means is that our now auxiliary fuel pump is not gonna run unless we're hitting 4 PSI. Now most people hook up their pump to a key switch so that it turns on and starts running from the moment you turn the vehicle on. This is a much more efficient and a much safer way to do it, because it means that the pump is not just running from the moment you turn the key on, it's not heating up the fuel unnecessarily, and in the event of, say, a crash or something like that, your fuel pump isn't running and it's not pushing fuel to literally and figuratively add fuel to a potential fire.
Okay, so now that we have the fuel system under the car installed, which was actually super simple, the wiring is just as simple. It's completely plug and play. So we have our ground wire, our power wire, our relay, and our fuses. You have your signal wire here, so this is going to actually plug into the coil pack to get its signal for power. Then you have your Hobbs switch, and then your power going to the fuel pump. It's Kevin proof. It's idiot proof. No, it really is. I mean, there's no like guessing or wiring or having to splice in anything. It literally, just so you don't have to splice, they literally came up with the connectors for everything. so it's all plug and play. And then as a secondary safety measure, you have your relay and your fuses here, so if any lines were to be chafed or anything happens, it's gonna blow a fuse before it destroys any of your factory stuff. And completely sealed. Here's a weather-tight, watertight seal that's gonna go on and it's gonna lock into place.
So you've got two safety measures with this entire setup to make sure that in the event of any type of failure, you're not gonna have as bad of a time as you might with other setups.
Yeah. Okay, so the hob switch needs a boost source. So we have our silicone hoses on here and our T. This is gonna be our boost source right here. So we're gonna actually just splice right into here, and that's where that boy's gonna sit, and it'll just kind of sit down here and get zip tied to the big AC line down here.
So now that we've got everything wired up, hooked up, and we've pressure tested it so we know that we've got no leaks and everything is functioning as it should, the next step is, of course, strapping it down to the dyno and seeing what type of power it's gonna make with this new setup. Now, if you'll remember, when we strapped it to the dyno last week, our power looked a little bit something like this. Nine, 637, 646. Ah! And now it's time to see exactly what this auxiliary fuel system will allow us to pull on the dyno today. Now, if you're wondering who's going to be tuning the Supra, we've got Mikey on the phone, and he's going to be Mikey tuning it remotely using EcuTech. So Kevin's actually going to use the app on his phone to actually log our dyno pulls. We'll be able to immediately send them to Mikey, and then he'll be able to make adjustments, fine-tune it, and send us a new map. It's actually pretty freaking rad. All right, so right here was our run on the dyno last week, 637, 646, and this is the pull we just did. We're at 583, 637. If you look at the graph, it looks like somewhere right about 4,500 RPM. It's almost like it's starting to pull the throttle.
Okay, so we got some pretty good data and pretty good info. I sent the log over to Mikey, he looked it over, and what you're seeing here on the graph, and the reason we're making less horsepower is because the throttle is closing. The stock ECU, when fuel pressure drops, you can set the setting on when you want to start closing throttle to limit power. Well, that started happening because E85, we don't have the high pressure side for it. And the good news is that we have plenty of low pressure. So by having both the stock pump and the pump we just added, we know we have plenty of fuel on the low pressure side. So we know that this is all from the high pressure drop, which means that unfortunately we can't run full E85, but what we can do is mix in 93 and bring that E85 down to like E60 or E50, and do another pull and see where we're at.
All right, so we dropped our fuel back down to about E50, a mixture of E85 and 93 octane, and this was the run we just did, which is 652, 650, which is still a very noticeable increase from that, but it's still not quite as much as we want, and that's because we're not able to take full advantage of that new fuel system because the high pressure fuel pump is limiting us.
So it's really good news because now we do know for a fact the high pressure fuel pump is the limiting factor. This is where we're at, E50, no more. This is where the fuel pressure is happy at on the high pressure side. We know we have all the low pressure fuel side now in the world with running the stock pump and this auxiliary fuel pump setup. So now from here, we have a couple options. We either leave the system as it is, run E40 to E50 and be happy.
Or you can go to port injection. Now, all the port injection kits on the market right now typically pull from the stock factory low side, which means that suddenly the low side fuel line is supplying not just the port injection, but also your high pressure fuel pump as well.
Which could become a limiting factor at that point.
So then instead of a high pressure limiting factor, suddenly we would end up with a low side limiting factor. But lucky for us, we literally just installed this auxiliary fuel system, which can supply a port injection all by itself, leaving the low side all on its own to continue to supply the high pressure fuel pump, which would mean that we would ultimately be eliminating all of our fuel limitations.
All of it.
Which means we would be open to making
all the power.
All the power. So this is good and this is bad, at least for us, because keep in mind this auxiliary fuel system is a little bit different on our car that's running a larger pure 800 turbo than it would be on a stock car running a stock turbo. So ultimately, our journey to build a 9-second Supra continues. So we have to make a decision now as far as which direction we want to go to take full advantage of this power that's just waiting to be had. Because obviously, we're not going to be the ones that are happy staying where we are. We're not going to keep it at the E40, E50 and just be happy. We're never going to be those content people. We're always going to be those people that are always looking for new, exciting, and stupid ways to modify our vehicles.
I like testing platforms. I like adding to it and seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work.
Pushing everything to the limit.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Anyway, so I mean, here we are. We have a turbo that still has a little bit more left in it if we had more fuel. And here we go. We have a low pressure fuel system, this auxiliary fuel system that has
a ton of potential.
All the potential needed. Now we just
how do we take advantage of it? So we've got to make a decision. Let us know what you guys think our next step should be. Are you on team leave it as is? Are you on team port injection? Or are you on team wait to figure out if someone can come up with a better alternative for the high pressure fuel pump? Because that's also another alternative. But that one's going to be a little bit harder, I think, to figure out. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Remember, you can find all your Lite Brite Nation merch at LiteBriteStudios.com. All of your Lite Brite Nation decals at pixeldecals.com. We love you so much, and we will see you next time.
This thing boogies. This thing boogie boogies.
It shits and gets.
All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, jump in with your board. Go.
My stomach's cramping.
Go.
I'm really nervous now.
Quit. Push.
Do it.
Yeah.
It's so close.
Quit being a
Oh my god.
All right, can I get a rope?
Okay, I need a rope. I am not okay.
All right, swap positions.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Oh no, arm straight, right?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh god.
Here we go.
Go.
You got it.
Yep. Almost. All right. Don't disappoint me this time, Brittany.
Here we go.
Yeah. So close. Okay, third time's a charm, babe.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, you almost had it.
There you go.
Oh, look at that. My brother was right.
All right, now bring it in slowly.
Watch out, Justin.
She needs to bring her front foot back a little bit forward more. Towards me.
You got it, babe.
Huh?
You did it.